All right, so now on to the Prismatic Warlock. Check the channel. I already put out a video on Prismatic Titan, on Prismatic Hunter, and kind of weighing the information that we have on this new subclass for each class, and how that is going to affect the core builds that we currently have for each character, right? So like, we have core builds for all 5 subclasses for Warlock. A lot of those builds are staple builds that everybody uses in some capacity or some kind of, slight modification. A lot of the builds that we currently have are going to be unaffected by Prismatic. I know a lot of people are panicking. That's why I'm putting these videos out. Everybody's saying, oh, it's just this Prismatic is gonna power creep everything that's currently in the game out of the game. You're gonna have no reason to use any of the other subclasses, and I think it's frankly like you're just kind of giving into emotion at that point because you haven't read what Bungie is basically telling us how these subclasses are going to work, right? If you actually think about it, what we use and how we use it currently and how that compares to what we're going to get with Prismatic, it's not game breaking. At least it doesn't appear to be. You'll probably be able to do some very powerful things with Prismatic, but you're still going to want to play your core builds in certain situations for certain surges and what have you. So I wanted to just kind of talk about that a bit. So what is Prismatic Warlock going to give us, right? And keep in mind, like I said, Prismatic is kind of a jack of all trades type of subclass, which means that it may be a master of none. We don't know yet. It could very well be a master of everything, but I could tell you that it's not going to replace a lot of the core builds that we have. So, and that's because Bungie has given us only a select few number of melee abilities, grenade abilities, and aspects and supers that you can use on each class, like Titan, Hunter, and Warlock. They all have access to unique things from the current core subclasses that we have, and each one is different. Like what Warlock has access to, like as far as grenade abilities, Titan doesn't. Neither does Hunter. Everybody has something different, right? So, for example, Warlock is the only class that has access to healing grenades with Prismatic, right? And I'll just list off what we have here. So for supers, we have Song of Flame. So the new Warlock Prismatic build or subclass is going to feature the new solar stuff, right? We're getting a new solar super. We're getting a new solar aspect called Helion or Helion. So it's going to feature those, right? So no Well of Radiance, right? Then we've got Nova Bomb. That's great. I mean, it's pretty much the best burst void super. We've got Storm Trance, meh. Roaming Arc super, okay, but I mean Geomags and Chaos Reach are kind of the go-to, especially in an Arc season. So we're not going to have access to that. Winter's Wrath and Needlestorm, obviously, they're the only 2 supers that we have for the Darkness subclasses. We're going to be able to use all class abilities, all movement abilities, so including Phoenix Dive and Blink. Pretty cool. For our melee abilities, we have Incinerator Snap, so no Celestial Fire, no ranged melee. We have Pocket Singularity, it's the only void one anyway. Chain Lightning, arguably the less effective arc ability for Warlock. Like Ball Lightning is just generally better. And then, of course, Penumbral Blast and Arcanial because they're the only ones. For grenades, like I said, Healing Grenade, so no fusion nades, no solar grenades. I mean, most of what Warlocks currently use on solar is fusion grenades and solar grenades. Not going to be the case with Prismatic. We do have vortex grenades, so I mean Voidlock has always been kind of king of vortex grenades, so I don't know, Void might be pretty potent. Maybe this will have some level of power creep as far as Voidwalker goes, if you can include all this into Prismatic. We've got storm grenades, so no pulse grenades. Pulse grenades are arguably the more effective arc grenade. Titan's the one that gets access to that on Prismatic, not Warlock. Then we've got cold snap grenades. Okay, that's pretty good. And threadling grenades. Also, Threadling grenades do lean into the Broodweaver kit pretty well as Cold Snap grenades, especially with certain aspects. Speaking of aspects, we got Helion. Don't know anything about it yet. I don't. If you do, comment below. We've got Feed the Void, which means that we've got no Chaos Accelerant. We've got no Child of the Old Gods. We've got Lightning Surge, which is like the worst endgame arc aspect for Stormcaller, which is the slide to melee one to jolt enemies. So no Electrostatic Mine and no Arc Souls. We've got Bleak Watcher. That's the best one for Shadebinder, so that's looking pretty good too. So maybe this will power creep Voidwalker and Shadebinder a little bit, right? This is kind of the first time I'm noticing that there might be a little bit of conflict of interest here between the core subclasses for Warlock and Prismatic. And then same thing for Broodweaver. We've got the Threadling grenades and we've got Weaver's Call, so we could really spam a lot of Threadlings still, but we don't have access to the other three aspects that Broodweaver does, right? So yeah, so we'll see where that goes. And just to point out here, the Transcendent ability that Warlock is going to have, every class has their own unique Transcendent ability, and I'm thinking that these Transcendent abilities are going to play a major role in build crafting with the Prismatic subclass, because it's the only Transcendent ability that we're going to have for them, and it features a combination of elements. So for Warlock, we've got Freezing Singularity, which states here, throw a massive void energy and stasis matter. On impact, it deploys a miniature black hole orbited by a halo of slowing ice. After a short duration, the black hole implodes, suppressing and dealing heavy damage to all nearby targets. Okay, so that means that we're going to have a very potent void and stasis ability with Transcendence, and that tells me that, especially given the fact that we have all of the best features from Voidwalker in here and all of the best features from Shadebinder in here, and the Transcendent features Void and Stasis, you're probably the most broken Prismatic Warlock builds are gonna lean heavily into Void and Stasis. But yeah, pretty interesting. So anyways, beyond that, what kind of core builds that we currently have, what do I think is not going to be effective? Well, obviously, if you look here at my notes, Well of Radiance, all in caps, LOL, because we all know Well of Radiance is still going to be relevant, and you're not going to have access to it on Prismatic. So you're still going to want to play your core Dawnblade subclass regardless. You're still going to want to play Stormcaller, because part of the biggest allure to playing Stormcaller is the ability spam with Ionic Traces. Also having easy access to Armor Charge with Elemental Charge from all the Ionic Traces. Stormcaller makes the most Ionic Traces out of any build in the game, right? Like, you just kill anything with any like Jolt or Blind or your abilities on Arc, you get tons of Ionic Traces. The Falling Sunstar build revolves around that. Your Arc Souls, you're not going to have access to Arc Souls. I mean, like, there's so many builds that revolve around Arc Souls. And then for Void, even though I'm saying that Void is still going to be really good in this kit, we're not going to have access to Child of the Old Gods. So your Briarbinds build, if you want to play with that, you're still going to have to go back to Voidwalker to do that. And as far as Shadebinder, if you really want the best Bleak Watcher turrets with Ice Flare bolts for that chain reaction freeze effect, you're going to have to go play Shadebinder to add Ice Flare bolts to your Bleak Watchers, because you're not going to have access to it on Prismatic. And then for Broodweaver, like the Necrotic Grips build where you pop Weaver's Trance, you don't have Weaver's Trance on Prismatic. So you're not going to be like doing the Suspend Poison build. Right? And you're not going to have the Wanderer, so you're not going to have the insane mobility of having that Wanderer tangle go a mile through the map, where you can just grapple onto it and get like across the map from the Wanderer. You're not going to have access to that either. Not that that's like a build in itself, but like there's still a lot of things that you're going to want to go back to the core subclasses to use yeah, so don't panic is all I'm saying. But yeah, anyways, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to cover these three classes, what we know so far for Prismatic. I am super hyped. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment. Don't forget to sub to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.